Hello traders. Welcome to the new trading week. It's election week here in Nigeria, and for those of us who went out to vote, I hope you guys had a safe and great time. And even for those of us who couldn't or didn't, for one reason or the other, I hope that whatever aspirations you have for the conclusion of the electoral process isn't cut short, right? So let's get right into it. Um, so I'm going to be analyzing only Euro US dollar this week because that's practically the only pair that I trade. Sometimes I trade AED USD as a backup, but yeah, let's get right into it. So normally I would start my analysis on the daily time frame, but because I'm an intraday trader. Uh, some might even call me a scalper, but intraday. Anyway, so let's start from the weekly. So if we look at this, we can see that the weekly time frame is actually bullish, right? The weekly order flow is currently bullish. We see this sweep of liquidity and then this massive buy, right? It's massive movement to the upside. Now we're seeing a very interesting reaction from this supply zone right here. And I'm not really surprised because it is a massive supply zone. And we can see clearly that it actually swept liquidity before creating this massive move to the downside, right? So this is where it gets interesting. I think now we can scale down to the daily time frame. But before we do that, let's just take a real quick look at this. For those of us who use trend lines, we can clearly see that this trend line has been broken. We see some sort of a retest, and for the retail traders in the house, and another retest, and yeah, potentially we could see price get lower. For those of us again who use fair value gaps, price could potentially be attracted to this zone. We could potentially see a deep pullback into the discount zone and then see a continuation potentially, right? We don't know for sure. But for me, I would be looking for price to kind of mitigate something in this zone, like an order block or something. Let's go down to the daily time frame real quick. So this is where it gets interesting. Obviously, the weekly time frame has begun its pullback, right? We can tell because at this point there was a weekly change of character, which would indicate that the pullback has started, right? So on the daily time frame, this change of character is actually a break of structure, right? Which is really interesting. So we've had a break of structure here. And this is a really massive supply zone because we can see that it swept liquidity, right? You can see that it swept liquidity and it created this massive sell to the downside. So, however, I think it's really interesting to know that this is a really strong demand zone as well. Again, it swept liquidity and created this massive move to the upside. Let me just tag this real quick. Right. So potentially we could see price um have a show some sensitivity to this area, even though it already has and it kind of failed to break above this supply or just produce something of significance, right? But potentially we could still see price react from this point. But it would most likely be for a pullback on the daily time frame before we see a continuation. So if we're looking at the breaks of structure, this is another break of structure on the daily time frame, right? Let's just use the break of structure lines instead. Oh, sorry, that's for the 15 minutes. Oops. right? So at the moment, this is the zone, this is the range that we're dealing with on the daily time frame. So we could see some sensitivity from this zone here, and a potential pullback into this premium area here. However, even though this is very unlikely, we could potentially see price break above this, create some sort of complex retest, and then continue to sell. However, if price does break above this range, then we have to be really, really careful, really get a bit suspicious, right? Because we could potentially see price then break above um our existing strong high, right? Uh right. So let's just scale down to the 4 hour and see what we're dealing with exactly. I'm just going to hide these. I'm just going to sorry, just going to make these not visible. Okay. So on the 4 hour time frame, we have a breakup structure at this point. So on the 4 hour time frame, currently this is the range that we're dealing with, right? This is where it kind of gets interesting because we could potentially see a reaction from this extreme 4 hour demand zone, which to me is a really important zone. We can see its liquidity and we can see the massive reaction from this demand zone, right? So just to tell you that this daily order block, or rather this daily demand zone, right? You can see this massive daily uh, sell to buy to sell area. I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm sell to buy area. That's my bad. Sell to buy area, right? Just to tell you that there could still be something in this zone, right? However, whatever reaction we see from here would most likely be for a pullback into the 4 hour premium before there's a continuation. Now, this is where you can get a little bit cheeky, a little smart about it. Now, if you look at this weekly candle, right, you can see that it's obviously an institutional candle. It's a very huge candle, right? Not a lot of gap from its lowest point and its closing point. So we could potentially see a retest within the range of this candle, which in a way aligns with the 4 hour range, right? So we could potentially see a retest, see the candle leave a huge week and then continue the impulse down. So potentially we could be looking for trades within this range for this upcoming week, right? And that would mean potentially a retest within this existing 4 hour zone range. Sorry. So um, that's that's that on Euro US dollar. Of course, we have to be able to adapt to whatever the market brings next week. We don't know for sure, but yeah, that's it for my outlook on Euro US dollar for the upcoming week. Good luck, traders, and more dollars to you this weekend. I'm sorry, this week. Bye.